Hello all and welcome back. I hope you're doing really well. Thank you again for the recent support on yesterday's video. I appreciate you all. Please make sure you're subscribed though. I think the split is 50-50 between people subscribed and also new people attending the channel. Subscribing here is a big benefit to you guys as I post a lot of information on the daily regarding all of the crypto projects that we're interested in within the space, as well as any new developments on the Hedera ecosystem. Obviously, this channel is quite heavily focused around sort of HBAR and Hedera itself, but I also cover lots of other projects. So please make sure you're subscribed for that. Anyway, let's jump straight into this as there's a lot of sort of macro news today in the markets and there is some interesting stuff to be told. Talking about that, looking at the crypto bubbles, we can see on the daily after that small pullback we saw on Friday and sort of Thursday evening, majority of the crypto projects in the space have returned back to green. We're pushing backward towards the upside, which is really nice to see. And lots of projects, again, that we're interested in have been doing very well. Rather ironically, as some of you noticed, as soon as I released a video yesterday talking about HBAR pulling back, it immediately turned around and it's done 6.4% on the day, and it did a decent chunk yesterday evening as well. So really nice to see that we're moving back towards that we are in that 25-26 cent range again. And as I said before, I think once HBAR breaks that 26, maybe even the 27 cent level, it's probably off to the races, because it's then into that sort of price discovery territory again before that previous run it did. I think that's kind of inevitable at this point, that we will see a breakout towards the upside once we surpass the 25, 26, 27 cent level. We'll come out of that range quite strongly. I've got some more information that I'll cover on that later in the video as well. Interesting to see that Axie Infinity is now up 13%, obviously following on from that hack. Could be something similar to how what you see of airlines. The safest airlines tend to be those after they've just had an accident, because obviously they step up security and checks, etc. So the network is probably more secure than it's ever been now following on from that attack, as there'll be all the engineers and development team will be scrambling to make sure that there's no other flaws within the smart contracts that they're utilizing. We can see XRP up here on the top right, up 4% as well. As I've mentioned in quite a few videos, I reckon this will probably just continue trading sideways realistically until we'll see some resolution from the SEC case. It's what it's done effectively for the last couple of years. Zilliqa has finally turned red, down sort of 6%. I probably think this may continue to fall a little bit more. It may have another run towards the upside. Quants, I'm just continuing to buy. We're now nearly at $150 again. 6% up on the day, which is fantastic to see. And obviously the rest of the projects that we're all interested in doing very well. Rune, again, another 8% on the daily, done 19% on the week and 109% on the month. So really nice to see for Rune, as it's quite an interesting solution to cross-chain tokens. Anyway, speaking of Hedera, let's just look at the chart in a little bit more detail. As I said yesterday, I pushed that video out when we were pulling back somewhere around this range. And then we've done a massive run up effectively out of that channel, immediately turned around. Interestingly enough, the volume is still quite low at the moment compared to what we had during the end of March. Hopefully we see that volume come back in, but I'm just going to continue to buy in this range until we start seeing a breakout to the upside. I want to have as much HBAR available to me for when staking goes live, liquid staking via Stader X, as I will like to put away a significant portion of my HBAR tokens into that protocol in order to earn some rewards going into the future. That's enough for HBAR at the moment. Looking at the general crypto macro space, sort of in general, some interesting quotes here that I wanted to touch on because I've covered this a few times, but talking about since the Ukrainian invasion by Russia, I have to say, on the 24th of Feb, on Binance, the BTC Ruble pairs trades have increased about 10 times, and the USDT Ruble trades have increased about 7-fold. And then they began to drop on the 7th of March when Visa and MasterCard pulled out of Russia. Similarly, Russian Google searches for how to convert rubles to Tether has increased 5-fold during the same period. So what we can see probably is a lot of the Russian population, as the ruble is continuing to capitulate based on the global sanctions put in place, they are fleeing to crypto to protect their assets and protect their wealth. Completely unsurprising. And this is one of the true powers of cryptocurrency. The fact that you can just move instantaneously from one domestic currency into another foreign currency, either by buying some form of crypto project or by buying one of these stable coins like BUSD, USDT, USDC, for example. And this is not new. You know, the Ukrainian civilians have been doing the same thing. But not only that, before this sort of war broke out, Turkey was something I covered on the channel a few times with their lira. And a huge percentage of households hoard US dollars and USDT crypto in order to protect their wealth because of the rampant inflation they've got within the economy over there. So again, this just goes to show the true power of cryptocurrencies and how easily accessible they are, and how easy it is also to move money between different types of currencies quickly to effectively protect yourself. In more news on the markets in general, Senator Warren Loomis, divided on digital asset value, agrees on regulation. So two of the highest profile US senators, while both agreeing on the need for more defined cryptocurrency regulation, are divided on the value of digital assets and their place in consumers' portfolios. Elizabeth Warren, Demas, and Cynthia Loomis particularly clashed on the fundamental value of Bitcoin Thursday on Chuck Todd's Meet the Press. So Cynthia Loomis being a bit of a bull for cryptocurrency, and Elizabeth Warren not so much. It's a bet on whether this ephemeral token will become more valuable or less valuable. I think we all know that realistically it's going to become more valuable over time. There are more and more large corporations moving into the space day by day, as well as governments across the globe beginning to accept the fact that digital assets and currencies are a big part of the future. And I think Asia realistically is leading the charge on this, with countries such as South Korea and other Asian states doing very well at adopting this and bringing in the early legislation, because they also know as well that any of these people that have been holding cryptocurrencies for a long period of time are worth a considerable amount of money now. And if harsh tax laws are put into place, for example, what we've seen in India, what we're sort of seeing in Europe, regarding the privacy stance they're taking, people may move countries. You know, this is not a new thing. Very wealthy people will leave countries in order to benefit themselves. And, you know, the Asian states are doing this to make their countries look more attractive, and they're doing a very good job of it. And hopefully the West effectively will see this and realize that they need to be a bit more fair when it comes to their policies they put into place regarding cryptocurrencies. Talking about that as well, Binance has now just become the official crypto exchange partner of the Grammy Awards. So again, you know, massively bullish news for Binance in general as it just continues its expansion to become the number one mainstay for crypto exchanges, or centralized exchanges, I should say. Especially with it opening new branches in Brazil and sort of South America, as well as buying up banks and payment facilitators in the region as well. You know, Binance are expanding at an incredible rate, and that's reflected by the size of their business, which is just going from strength to strength. More news as well is the Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong says the EU's new law on hosted cryptocurrency wallets is an anti-innovation, anti-privacy, and anti-law enforcement. This was obviously something I touched on in yesterday's video, where they've been talking about upping the ante effectively against cryptocurrency wallets where they have a lack of visibility. They want to remove some of that privacy, and clearly my views are shared by Brian Armstrong and probably many others in the community as well, that Europe is taking a backward step when it comes to cryptocurrency and digital assets in general, and it's not a good look at all. Talking about the Hedera ecosystem though, DOVU, obviously a token that I love very dearly and I've been buying up more and more as the days go by. Lehman Baird has just gone and created a really nice platform. I'll link this down in the description for you guys, which is just called sort of DOVU stats, and it looks at the current statistics for DOVU. So we can already see, as I touched on yesterday, but now we have a quantitative figure, nearly 70% of the DOVU HTS tokens have been staked, which is fantastic to see. So don't forget, the Dove HTS supply is obviously not the complete supply. That's the tokens that have been migrated to the Hedera token service via Hashport. There are still millions of tokens that are sat on other ecosystems, for example, the Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum. But what we can see is that 70% of those tokens that have been ported across have already been staked, and the sort of total value locked is now just under $900,000. It was like $1 million Canadian dollars. but that is doing very well. And we can also see as well 32% of the total supply is currently circulating, and then we're up 1% roughly on the 24-hour range. Quite a nice sort of website that he's put together here, which is really good to see, and I'll be keeping my eye on this for my DOVU stats, which is fantastic. Some more exchange news as well for HBAR, which is really bullish. BitVavo has just listed HBAR, so now available for trading. HBAR is the native cryptocurrency of the Hedera public network. You can now trade HBAR on BitVavo. What's really interesting about this as well is, okay, they're not a massive exchange. This is no COINBASE listing, but BitVavo are 52nd by sort of size in terms of the cryptocurrency market. So it's not a small exchange either. There's plenty of exchanges that are much smaller than it, which is really nice to see. And I think if I search for WU as well, which I covered in yesterday's video, that's a rank 62 sized exchange. So 2 big sort of ish exchange listings for HBAR in the last couple of days, and hopefully we will see more coming out into the future. Don't forget as well, I mean, a lot of these top exchanges already list HBAR, other than obviously Coinbase, the infamous Coinbase listing, which hopefully we will see in our lifetimes. Some more bullish news as well for Hedera in general, as don't even know how you pronounce that, ACOER has just passed 20 million transactions recorded by our data stamping service on Hedera. So this is another solution using the Hedera DLT. Again, really bullish to see that these big use cases. It's really interesting as well, because other than us in this sort of community, a lot of these use cases fly underneath the radar, and many new investors have absolutely no idea of the scale of these applications that are being built on top of Hedera, because it's not all sort of fancy and shiny DeFi, which is coming. The next couple of weeks we will see this. April is going to be a wild feral ride for a lot of us Hedera holders, I believe. I know Dead Pixels is gearing up for some announcements, and I believe SaucerSwap as the DEX is also gearing up for some announcements in the coming weeks. So it'd be really interesting to see what they come out with. Obviously for the Dead Pixels launch, that's going to be a completely fair open mint session when it releases. So obviously there's no sort of early access that you guys can get to that, but however for SaucerSwap, obviously you can get early access and sort of other benefits of like source tokens every 8 hours if you hold some of the Epoch Plank Epoch NFTs. There's a video on my channel showing you guys how to do that. Talking about HBAR as well and its sustainable projects building on Hedera, so that $100 million sustainable impact fund that was released. Just a couple more projects here that I wanted to quickly cover. Obviously DOVU being one of the biggest. Timles as well is another one, Water Ledger and Miko, which is something that I've covered before on the channel, but you've got 4 projects here all within this sustainability ecosystem that may benefit very nicely from this. Obviously DOVU has been doing very well recently. I will take a look into Water Ledger and Timles or Timles at a later date and see whether there's any sort of tokens that we can pick up early, and also look into what they're doing, but really bullish on Hedera in general. Talking about a sort of breakout, as I mentioned, we're in that sort of 25-26 range. Interesting tweet here from Nick over at Crypto Crusaders or Encash Official. Quickly address this in my live stream from today, but also tightening on the charts between EMA resistance, support leading to major breakouts across the board. HBAR is repeating this same pattern, and soon we'll have a breakout similar to ZIL, see below. So this is the ZIL chart, so ZIL to US dollar chart that we see. It was all sort of in this range, and then it absolutely spiked, and we can see that sort of HBAR is doing something very similar against the US dollar, and potentially there may be a breakout towards the upside. I think this is quite likely. As I said before, this is that sort of infamous 25, 26 or 27 cent range. Once we kind of get stuck in this range, we have been trading sideways quite a lot. Once we break out of that, we could head up towards the upside, and the next sort of set of resistance points realistically is around the 30 to 35 sort of cent mark up here. So hopefully we see some bullish momentum soon, although hopefully not too soon, as again I'm still just sort of averaging into these positions, because as I said, I'm expecting that once DeFi, dApps and DEXs and this whole sort of decentralized finance ecosystem gets released on Hedera, these buying opportunities as they currently are at this price point for HBAR won't be seen again for a long time, if at all ever. So I want to make sure that I can accumulate as much as I possibly can at these particular levels, because I just don't think we'll see them again. So I do want HBAR to increase in value, but maybe just a couple more weeks hopefully before it has a breakout, so that I can just sort of continue to fill those bags as much as I possibly can before we go on this wild ride. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. A little bit longer than usual, but some really bullish news for Hedera and HBAR in general. And that HBAR price is really seriously looking like it's going to start breaking out towards the upside. Please make sure you're subscribed. And if you're not, following me on Twitter as well. Post a lot of information over there. I am working on some more infographics to do with DeFi figures, maybe the staking rewards once Stader HBAR gets released, to compare some of the layer ones. Anyway, have a nice weekend. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.